This training webinar will introduce the outputs of the project MaGICLandscapes, Management of Green Infrastructure in Central European Landscapes. The project was implemented within the framework of the Interreg Central Europe Programme from July 2017 to June 2020 and financed by the European Regional Development Fund. The output publications enable stakeholders in urban, peri-urban and rural landscapes to understand the concept of green infrastructure and to assess its functions and landscape services. The outputs presented within this webinar are decision-making tools for planning and implementing future investments in green infrastructure to maximize its services and benefits. The aim of the project was to raise awareness and increase knowledge of the concept of green infrastructure and its benefits. The project also targeted to increase the use of the concept in planning decisions and to promote its multifunctional approach. 10 project partners from 5 European countries, Austria, the Czech Republic, Germany, Italy and Poland, set themselves the task of developing tools to analyze and evaluate the green infrastructure resource, its spatial structure, functions and landscape services in a transnational context across 9 case study areas. The partners were supported by over 40 associated institutions from a variety of sectors who helped identify local, regional and national needs and opportunities for green infrastructure implementation and how this could deliver on existing objectives and planning policies and strategies. 3 of the 9 case study areas are national parks. Tajatal National Park in Lower Austria and the Giant Mountains National Parks in Poland and the Czech Republic are investigating the existing green infrastructure network in and around the protected areas. In the Italian Piedmont region, the metropolitan city of Turin is interested in linking urban and peri-urban green infrastructure between Turin in the Po Valley and the city of Chieri. The second Italian case study area extends along the Upper Po Plain with its extensive rice fields. Further case study areas are situated in the Eastern Waldviertel and Western Weinviertel in Lower Austria, in the South Moravian region around the city of Kyiv, in the tri-border region Germany, Czech Republic, Poland, and in the Dübener Heide Nature Park in Saxony and Saxony-Anhalt. The European Commission defines green infrastructure as a strategically planned network of natural and semi-natural areas with other environmental features, designed and managed to deliver a wide range of ecosystem services and functions, such as water purification, air quality, space for recreation and climate change mitigation and adaptation. This network of green and blue spaces can improve environmental conditions and therefore citizens' health and quality of life. It also supports a green economy, creates job opportunities and enhances biodiversity. Green and blue infrastructure can take many forms, ranging from the man-made, such as green walls and green roofs, to public parks and sports fields, through to more natural spaces, such as forests, meadows and rivers. All of which have different functions or primary uses and are managed accordingly, but all are parts of the wider green infrastructure network. Green infrastructure is a network of parks, gardens, floodplains, streams, forests and hedge structures in urban and rural areas. The underlying concept is cross-sectoral and thus it should be planned alongside with residential and commercial areas. All policy areas, be it health and education, energy and transport, agriculture and forestry, can benefit from the creation of green elements. Green infrastructure is multifunctional and provides multiple benefits and services. The creation of an inner-city green strip along a stream not only enhances the habitats of the species living there, but can also improve the quality of place and recreation opportunities for the citizens. Newly planted trees and shrub vegetation absorb carbon dioxide and can serve as a potential supply of energy and raw materials. Furthermore, the new green elements and spaces can be used as a place of education for sustainable development, or on agricultural land, it helps against soils drying out and erosion caused by wind and water. The first work package of the project provides a conceptual framework for the analysis and evaluation of green infrastructure. Major outputs include a handbook providing the basic definitions and legal requirements, and a manual for transnational assessment of green infrastructure as tools to support planning decisions in the regions. Anna loves nature and her city, and she wants to make it better. She wants to talk to the mayor about it. In his office, she finds him moaning about unused green spaces, roads full of traffic causing air pollution. Anna introduces the multifunctional approach of green infrastructure and its benefits for quality of life and biodiversity. What about a park by the river near the railway station? Some wildflower strips along the roads, a garden for the primary school next door, or green roofs on public buildings. The Green Infrastructure Handbook reflects on the definition of green and blue infrastructure and related terms and its relationship to European, national and regional policies of the project partner countries. Furthermore, it covers the territorial needs for a green infrastructure approach and its contribution to sustainable development in Europe and beyond. It demonstrates that this approach can address specific territorial and shared challenges. The handbook also introduces the project's 9 case study areas, which provided the basis on which to identify needs for green infrastructure and best practice for assessment. The publication provides practice-oriented information based on a review of literature and legislation, as well as experiences of people from the regions involved. The Manual of Transnational Green Infrastructure Assessment provides guidance in assessing the structure and types of green infrastructure at the transnational level. It demonstrates the process to generate transnational maps, evaluates the available data, for example provided by the European Copernicus Programme, and discusses their suitability for assessing green infrastructure in Central Europe. It provides a method for and shows results of the individual ground truthing tasks carried out in the 9 case study areas. Due to some shortcomings regarding the special resolution, accuracy and classified elements of the transnational data, the manual also demonstrates how to refine maps to the national and regional level using more detailed data, for example biotope data, and provides a collection of improved examples from the case study areas. The manual is a useful tool for stakeholders dealing with green infrastructure mapping. The transnational and regional maps produced alongside the manual provide the basis for further analysis, for example on the provision of landscape services, biotope connectivity and functionality. The Manual of Transnational Green Infrastructure Assessment includes a transnational map, which shows a coordinated classification scheme of all elements of green infrastructure in the countries of the Central Europe Programme area. It also includes green spaces, for example sport and leisure facilities or vineyards, which are defined as partly green infrastructure. The manual also contains regional green infrastructure maps for all 9 case study areas, based on European Carina land cover data and on regional biotope and land use data. Regional stakeholders can use these maps for future landscape management and planning of investments in green infrastructure networks. In this example from the Dübener Heide Nature Park case study in Germany, forests, meadows and wetlands are typical elements of green infrastructure, interspersed with settlements and agricultural land. The area is between the rivers Mulde and Elbe and has post-mining landscapes in the north. Water is an important element in the area, and the beaver, the emblem of the nature park, is resident here alongside many other species. The spatial analysis shows local needs for the networking of green infrastructure of the open land and its connection with green spaces within settlements. In Work Package 2, the project partners assessed the functionality and landscape services of selected green infrastructure elements in their case study areas. Important outputs are a method and guidelines for determining the functionality of certain elements, as well as mapping regional green infrastructure networks with regard to its degree of connectivity, naturalness, and landscape services. The city already has green and blue infrastructure, like the river corridor with its greenery. An old park here, a small woodland there. But these elements are isolated and not connected to each other. Anna wants to create multifunctional and interconnected elements like trees, wildflower strips along roads, ponds, urban gardens and woodland. This green network connects people with spaces and serves as habitat for wildlife, provides food, improves air quality, helps to manage rainwater, has a cooling function in hot weather, amongst many other functions and services. The Manual of Green Infrastructure Functionality Assessment provides selected results from the project's case study areas. Those results include the categorization and appraisal of core areas, stepping stones and corridors, and the evaluation of land cover in terms of landscape services. The manual contains maps illustrating the functionality of green infrastructure in selected areas in terms of landscape ecological functions. The maps identify areas in need of action, for example, where functions like climate regulation, habitat provision, or local food production could be enhanced to deliver a greater benefit for people and wildlife. These maps are an important information base for the development of regional green infrastructure strategies in Work Package 3. The manual is aimed at helping the user understand land use functionality when developing planning policies by providing an approach for collecting the evidence necessary to support informed decision-making. The Manual of Green Infrastructure Functionality Assessment contains a number of regional maps reflecting the functional value of local green elements and their services. They show the spatial distribution of the value of overall landscape services in each case study area. They include services like climate and water regulation, habitat services, production services like food and raw materials, information services like recreation and education, and carrier services like tourist activities and transport. The map shows the overall functionality of green infrastructure in the whole Central Europe. The functionality and landscape services maps can serve as the basis for further analysis and assessments on certain green elements and how to enhance their ecological value. The third work package goal was to develop strategies for the implementation and management of green infrastructure at European, regional and local level. Main outputs of this work package are a manual for creating evidence-based green infrastructure strategy and action plans, as for the 9 case study areas. In summer, Anna organizes a community event for creating new green infrastructure in the rundown park by the river. The action is supported by citizens wanting a better quality of life in their city. They plant trees and shrubs to enhance the urban cooling function and plant fruit bushes and vegetable beds. As a result of reconnecting the park to the river and the new cycle path alongside, citizens and visitors now enjoy more recreation opportunities. The park has become a gateway for the green infrastructure network in Anna City, and this is just the start. The Manual for Creating Evidence-Based Green Infrastructure Strategies and Action Plans, a tool supporting local planning, guides the reader through the process of developing a green infrastructure strategy. It lays out the spatial and political reasoning for adopting a green infrastructure-based approach and for whom. It brings together the transnational and functionality assessments and a further public benefit-based review, which employs both quantitative analysis and qualitative approaches involving stakeholders. The manual demonstrates how each individual case study area used the assessment methods to develop their own unique green infrastructure strategies. This enables the reader to recognize and understand how they can develop a strategy to meet their own regional and local needs for green infrastructure and the benefits it provides. Green infrastructure strategy and action plans were developed for each of the 9 case study areas. Each area has its own specific issues and opportunities. The strategy map for the Dübener Heide Nature Park shows areas where the perception, communication and identification of green infrastructure could be improved in the future. The map further indicates places of education for sustainable development. Additional ecologically valuable green elements could be created by near-natural forest restructuring, revitalizing river floodplains, or creating parks and gardens in the settlements. The strategy and action plans provide important information for future planning strategies considering targeted investments in green infrastructure in the participating regions. One action of the strategy for the development of green infrastructure in the Dübener Heide Nature Park is to develop and establish community gardens or show gardens as places of encounter and practical environmental education, as well as promoting a garden culture close to nature. Restoring rivers, their floodplains and catchment areas represents an important area of action in the tri-border region Czech Republic, Germany, Poland. It helps to prevent severe flooding events, to minimize soil erosion in the catchment areas, and to increase biodiversity of the floodplains. In the area around the city of Kyiv in South Moravia, new green infrastructure elements will make the landscape more permeable, not only for wildlife, but mainly for people. They help to combat high soil erosion on steeper slopes of vast arable fields and will support water retention to avoid further soil erosion. The Giant Mountains National Park on Czech side restores original wetlands and peat bogs to support biodiversity of these habitats and therefore landscape capability of water retention as well. Another significant action is educational trail construction and tourist path upkeep and repair. It helps with tourism management, like a negative impact on nature. The Giant Mountains National Park on Polish side and the surrounding landscape parks in the Jelenia Góra basin ensure their valuable green areas are accessible for tourism, science and education, which increases the understanding and respect for nature among the region's communities. Community involvement also plays a role in management and decision-making. The integration of the green infrastructure approach into special planning documents was a main objective of the regional strategy and action plan. This is just the starting point of a regional partnership and will enable all residents of the area to enjoy the many benefits that well-managed and inclusive green infrastructure can provide. Besides the near-natural forest areas of Tajatal National Park, the meadows and heathland also play an important role in the preservation of the biodiversity and structural wealth in the region. In order to keep these special and rare areas open and free from succession, the park management relies on near-natural grazing measures. For example, in the Czech National Park zone, Exmoor ponies are employed to graze the open areas. In the project region Eastern Wald and Western Weinviertel, the landscape requires diverse strategies and measures. In the arable landscape, the restoration of hedges, field margins or flower strips is an important action. Forests can be conserved using species suitable for the location and creating forest reserves. In this, one of Austria's driest regions, water bodies and wetlands are of great importance. Retention and buffer areas, widening water bodies and increasing the structural diversity of rivers and riparian areas, raising the groundwater level and flood protection can be combined. Green infrastructure in productive landscapes can be safeguarded and improved by preserving and returning to the traditional fine-grained cultural landscape of embankments, tree rows, and individual trees. The remaining dry grasslands, meadows, and pastures are particularly threatened by scrub encroachment and abandonment. Especially so since they are scattered and often isolated within the intensively used cultural landscape. With targeted and traditional management, such as mowing and grazing, these species-rich habitats can be permanently preserved as valuable elements of the regional green infrastructure. Improvements to green areas close to and within settlements, such as gardens and parks, as well as road and rail sites, can widen the green infrastructure network. These improvements are beneficial to residents and are proved to essential in maintaining a quality of life for communities. In order to meet the biodiversity conservation objectives of the Po Park Authority in the Upper Po Plain, they will further restore sheltered forest, lowland forests and wetlands. The creation of cycle paths along with surrounding green elements connected to nearby residential areas will create a network of green infrastructure in the Upper Po Plain, a popular destination for those who want to relax and interact with nature in their local environment. The landscape on the gently sloping east side of the Po Hills around Chieri has impressive scenic value, with variety of agricultural crops, vineyards and orchards, with small woods, hedges, shrubs, tree-lined roads creating the landscape. These green infrastructure elements need more protection. They need to be enhanced in such a way as to repair and improve the ecological connectivity of the area and its landscape quality. Though it is an artificial basin, Lake Arignano is the most important wetland within the case study area and is the subject of an action plan drawn up by the metropolitan city of Turin, aiming to improve the green infrastructure network of the area. All project outputs presented by this webinar are also available in German, Czech, Italian and Polish language. They can be downloaded from the project website.